All right. Looks like Instagram's giving some trouble, but today's 313. We're looking at this property in 3528. It's contingent, and here's why I'm looking at this property today. Now, this property is right up here in this area. I got some properties in Fairfield, so this is relatively close, right? You're kind of within this big thing. And I like that it's active because now it gives me a good idea of what the market is paying for, right? This property, it's renovated inside, outside. Looks like it got new siding, new floors, cosmetic. Doesn't look like you need to do much. Like, I mean, look at the kitchen, right? The kitchen looks pretty nice, man, for the most part. So this is a four bed, two bath, 1,600 square feet. So now that I got this good indicator, right? I'm gonna underwrite this property as is, but then now I'm gonna have a really, really good comparison for, hey, for my future burrs, I can now remember that in 35208 that there are four bed, two bath, 1,600 square feet that's selling for 150 grand renovated. So now I know how much I can potentially burr a property for. This helps tremendously in how I underwrite deals going forward. So today we're just gonna go and get the rents for this property, right? Jefferson County. This is in. So first thing I want to do is I want to get my rent ceiling. Okay. I'll look at the chat just in case there's any questions here. I was forgetting to do that. All right, and now we're gonna just go see what the maximum rent is for this property. And if you Google HUD FMR, right? Once you Google HUD FMR, you're gonna be able to find the first link right here. And FMR stands for fair market rents. We're gonna go click on access a small area fair market rents, FMRs, look up FY 2024 FMRs, pick your state, pick your county. This is in Jefferson County. Once you get over here, now you're able to see by zip code, by bedroom count, what the rent ceiling is. As you can see right here is 1,600, right? For a four bed and 1,440 for a three bed, 35208, 35208, and 35208. Writing down all these numbers because my partners already know how I analyze these deals. So this is just a good way for them to understand, hey, where did I get my assumptions from? All right, now that I got my rent ceiling, I'm gonna go get my market rent. To get my market rent, I'm going to affordablehousing.com. I'm gonna go to the owner section. You can go to the market rent estimator. And then I'm gonna plug in this address and the bedroom count. So copy this and put that right in here. And I'll put this in four bed. And now I'm going to see that the rent ceiling is 1351. Now I have to use the lower of the two, right? When I compare 1351 with the rent ceiling that I saw here, and that's because of the rent reasonableness test. All right, let me write these numbers down, and I'm going to explain to you what the rent reasonableness test is. All right, 1349. And this says that for 23 units within a 1.6 mile radius, the average rent is 1351. All right, this tells me that this is a pretty accurate number. And when you look at the rent reasonableness test, it says that in section 2.2 of the Housing Choice Voucher Program Guidebook, right? Housing Choice Voucher is what was previously known as section 8, but they rebranded to Housing Choice Voucher instead of section 8 because of all the negative connotations that were associated with section 8. So in conducting rent reasonableness in section 2.2, the PHA or Public Housing Authority, they're the ones who administers all the vouchers. They must determine whether the rent to the owner is a reasonable rent in comparison to rent for other comparable unassisted units. So you can't charge more rent simply because they're a voucher holder, right? That 1,600 number that we saw earlier, that's really the ceiling inclusive utilities. So if you're just charging rent, 1,350 is probably going to be the more reasonable rent here, right? So now I'm going to write in some of these numbers now that I got these details in, and I'm going to use the lower of the two because of the rent reasonableness test. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go to F29. I'm going to turn that to 25% down. And my down payment is now going to be equal to my B4, which is my asking price, multiplied by my down payment percentage in F19. This gives me 37,475. This allows me to say, hey, chances are I'm going to finance the balance of that. So I'm going to do equals B4, the asking price, minus my down payment amount of 37 grand. So I will be financing 112 grand. At roughly around 8%, right? Just using the DSCR alone. Could be a little bit lower, sure. Interest rates are kind of really fluctuating right now, so I'm just going to be a little bit more conservative using 8%. And now I'm going to zero out my secondary loan because that was just related to the deal I was analyzing yesterday. So now let's plug in the rest of my numbers. For my property taxes, I'm going to get that from the Redfin website. And you're going to see that the Redfin website estimates the property tax to be 177 and home insurance to be 116. So I'm going to equals 116 times 1.2 because that 116 number is typically for a property that you're owning as a primary residence. When you're using it as a rental, it's probably going to cost a little bit more. So that's why I'm adding a 20% premium by multiplying it by 1.2. So now that I got that in, I got 10% for my maintenance. This is money I'm setting aside every single month for future repairs and for even current repairs, right? It could be landscaping, which is current, or just setting aside money because I know for a fact that my roof is going to get replaced, right? My HVAC is going to break down eventually. I literally just spent $5,000 on repairing an HVAC for one of our properties in Scottsdale. And that wasn't even a full replacement. That was just repairing the parts. So these things break all the time. So this money right here, it does not belong to you. So make sure you set that aside every single month when you're calculating your profitability for an investment, right? You don't want to be that person thinking you made an extra $135 a month, all of a sudden to get a roof replacement in less than 100 months, and all of a sudden that wipes out all the profitability that was in your head, all right? I got 10% for property management. I got 5% for vacancy. So all in all, this property, if I rented for $1,350, I would be losing negative $129 a month, negative $129. This would be a negative 3.5% return. And my purchase price is assuming $150,000. Right? Rehab is $3,500 because I'm assuming it's a relative turnkey. I usually just set aside some money here in a rehab calculator for. I'll show you what I set it aside for. I usually set aside about $1,500 for the roof, just in case there's any issues with the roof that I can't see from the photos. Right? It might look really beautiful, but they might find something in the roof. I guess set aside $500 for landscaping, just to kind of keep it nice and keep up the upkeep so that nothing happens. And I usually just replace 2 of the toilets with high pressure flush toilets to avoid any clogged call. Even though it might be a brand new toilet, I don't want those cheap, slow flush, weak flush toilets because eventually they get clogged. And when they get clogged, you got to send a plumber out there. If you send a plumber out there, usually it costs about $200, $300. I might as well avoid all that energy, right? $200, $300 when I could just replace the toilet for $450 up front, reduce the chances of any calls, and I never had to even worry about losing sleep or energy over clogged toilets. That's just my personal preference, right? So now that I know this is not going to make a deal at 8%, I want to share with you how do you pick aside a set of terms or a price that makes it a number, that makes it a deal, right? Again, it's not investment advice. We're not soliciting any investments on this call. This is all for informational and entertainment purposes only. So watch what happens in E9 for the cash and cash return as I lower my asking price. If I lower my asking price to $100,000, now it's I'm a 6% return. If I go to $90,000, now it's 8.5. If I go to 88, now I'm at 9. So if I bought this property at $85,000, this would be a 10% return, and that would be a deal, quote unquote, right? Assuming I still rent it out for $1,350, but now I'm cash flowing $229 a month. That's a 10% return, but I'm buying this property now at $85,000. So to me, that's unlikely going to happen. So you got to think about, well, how do I eventually BRRRR this deal, right? And we can do a BRRRR analysis another day, right? On how do you actually buy a property, you rehab it, you rent it back out, and then you refinance it, and then you pull your cash invested out, and then you repeat it with the recycled capital that you have. That's a whole different strategy. Today, we're just looking at very, very conventional type of deals. So because this property is already under contract, we're not going to go ahead and look at creative finance terms because they're not going to set the creative finance, right? They already set that offer. They're already contingent. They're probably going to go through with it. But if there was a case and they wouldn't budge off of $150,000, you might think, well, how do I make this a deal? Well, what if the seller decides to seller finance it, right? So watch what happens when this interest rate in K7, right, went from 8% to 0%. I am now able to get 10.3% on my cash and cash return. So that's a 25% down, $3,500 rehab. The purchase prices stay the same, but the only difference now is that the seller becomes the bank. The seller is now financing it to me at principal only payments, which is also equivalent to 0%. And that allows you to cash flow $384 a month at 10% return. So again, right, if it was 8% interest rate, I will have to buy it at $85,000. If it was 0% interest rate, I can buy $150,000. And that's an exercise I really want you all to experience, to go through, to understand how do you pull the levers to make something a deal for yourself, right? Obviously everybody's criteria is different. Not everybody wants to get a 10% return. Some people are frankly happy with just breaking even after all expenses because they might be investing in a high appreciating market and you go up, let's say 5% on $1 million property, right? All of a sudden that's worth their time, right? Because that's probably more return on your invested capital, even though it's an appreciation in equity, and that's very speculative, but it's a strategy. And $50,000 in a year is going to be a lot better than trying to get $300 cash flow a month, which only results in $1,300 cash flow a year. So think about it, right? You got to decide what your strategy is, what your risk appetite is, and that's why you got to consult with your own investment professional about your own goals. All right, so I hope you guys all have an amazing day. Again, I hope you do just analyze the same deal I analyzed today, right? This is just a deal that's contingent on a market. I just found it right there. I'm just trying to understand better and better what properties are going for in the market. And that just happens from getting reps in, analyzing a deal every single day. And if you guys want to copy the spreadsheet, right? I didn't make it from scratch. Just go to affordablehousing.io, right? You can get a copy of the spreadsheet. Just put in your name, email, your phone number. I promise I won't spam you. But I hope you use the same spreadsheet. All right. I got it from a few other folks. I combined a few other versions. I tweaked it and modified it so that I can analyze deals a lot faster. I hope you guys can do the same. I hope you guys can build the confidence and put it on your own YouTube channel. Build that track record for yourself so that you know what you are doing. Okay. All right. Have an amazing day. Today's day 313. I'll be back here again tomorrow for day 314. Have a good one, everybody.